to make your wait worth the while, but we don't quite have what I wanted for you just yet. But anyway, um, good afternoon. On Bangladesh, I can tell you that we expect a formal statement shortly. We're watching the situation in the country very closely. We continue to call for calm and restraint and to urge all parties to respect the right to peaceful assembly and expression. We urge security forces to protect those out on the streets of Dhaka and other cities of Bangladesh. You'll have seen that the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Türk, issued a statement yesterday in which he called for violence in the country to stop. He added that accountability for human rights violations, including those with superior and command responsibility, is crucial. The international community must make it clear that at this pivotal time, there will be no impunity. You've been asking for a long time about the Office of Internal Oversight Services work concerning the UN Relief and Works Agency. I can tell you the following. The Office of Internal Oversight Services has completed its investigation into 19 area staff members of the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, regarding allegations of their involvement in the armed attacks of the 7th of October 2023 in southern Israel. OIOS made findings in relation to each of the 19 UNRWA staff members alleged to have been involved in the attacks. In one case, no evidence was obtained by OIOS to support the allegations of the staff members' involvement, while in 9 other cases, the evidence obtained by OIOS was insufficient to support the staff members' involvement. With respect to these 10 cases, appropriate measures will be taken in due course in conformity with UNRWA regulations and rules. In respect of the remaining 9 cases, the evidence obtained by OIOS indicated that the UNRWA staff members may have been involved in the armed attacks of the 7th of October 2023. The employment of these individuals will be terminated in the interests of the agency. Turning to Gaza, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that ongoing bombardment and hostilities continue to kill, injure, and displace Palestinians, as well as damage and destroy the homes and infrastructure they rely on. In just the past 48 hours, 3 schools sheltering displaced people in Gaza City were reportedly hit, resulting in dozens of casualties, according to Palestinian civil defense. Partners on the ground are assessing the needs of people who fled and have been providing assistance. Meanwhile, a new analysis by the UN Satellite Center, UNOSAT, found that as of a month ago, 63% of structures in Gaza had been damaged. Yesterday, the Israeli military issued a new evacuation order for people living in areas of southern Khan Yunis and northern Rafah to immediately move westward to Al-Mawasi. Our partners tracking population movements in Gaza estimate that more than 11,000 people had been living in these areas affected by this evacuation order. We call once again for all parties to the conflict to respect their obligations under international humanitarian law, including by taking constant care to spare civilians and civilian objects. This includes allowing civilians to leave for safer areas and allowing their return as soon as circumstances allow. People must be able to receive humanitarian assistance, whether they move or stay. As the violence continues, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is deepening. Our partners are now reporting a surge in malnutrition levels among children in northern Gaza last month. They noted a 300% increase in July, when more than 650 cases of acute malnutrition were diagnosed, compared to May, when 145 such cases were detected. Our humanitarian partners say that nutrition conditions are worsening due to access constraints, shortages in essential supplies, limited availability of fresh produce and meat, poor water and sanitation services, and spreading diseases. For example, acute supplies shortages mean that just 8% of the nearly 50,000 children whom our partners had been aiming to reach in northern Gaza were able to receive those supplies last month. Undersecretary General Jean-Pierre Lacroix concluded his official trip to the Middle East on Saturday. On the first leg of this visit, he met with personnel of the UN Disengagement Observer Force, UNDOF, and engaged with senior Syrian officials in Damascus to reaffirm the mission's commitment to its mandate and de-escalation. In Lebanon, Mr. Lacroix visited the UN Interim Force in Lebanon, or UNIFIL, in South Lebanon, after meetings in Beirut with Lebanese political and military leaders, where he discussed the important role of UNIFIL in supporting de-escalation across the Blue Line. Throughout these engagements, he stressed the need for all actors to cease fire, recommit to Resolution 1701, and work towards a durable political and diplomatic solution. He visited UNIFIL's Nakura headquarters and joined peacekeepers on patrol and in positions along the Blue Line. They were commended for their efforts in a challenging environment. Turning to Ukraine, our colleagues from the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us that hostilities continued over the weekend and today in frontline regions in the east of the country. Local authorities reported over 70 civilian casualties, including children, and extensive damage to homes and health and education facilities. The towns of Pokrovsk, Mirnohrad, and Toretsk in the Donetsk region were particularly impacted, with repeated strikes damaging at least 5 education and health facilities. Due to the worsening security situation, local authorities initiated a mandatory evacuation of children in 6 towns and villages in the Donetsk region, offering temporary accommodation and support to evacuated families. Aid organizations, notably in western Ukraine, provided basic assistance, psychosocial support, and other services to the evacuees. During the first half of this year, aid workers provided humanitarian assistance to more than 440,000 people in the Donetsk region, where aid remains a lifeline for devastated communities. Turning to Sudan, our colleagues from the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs are warning that active conflict and worsening flooding continue to fuel misery across the country, including in North Darfur. On Saturday, fighting in the state capital, El Fasher, reportedly displaced nearly 2,000 people from the Al-Salam camp. As you may remember, the Famine Review Committee warned last week that famine conditions are likely prevalent in Al-Salam camp. In Zamzam camp, where famine conditions have been confirmed, more than 5,000 people have been displaced due to heavy rains in recent weeks. There are alarming reports that latrines and water points are being flooded, increasing the risk of waterborne diseases at a time when people are already dying from hunger and illness. We and our humanitarian partners are trying to scale up assistance in these and other hunger hotspots in Sudan, but we continue to face major challenges, including access constraints, impassable roads, and funding gaps for the aid operation. Once again, we call for safe and unimpeded humanitarian access, including across borders and battle lines, to stop a large-scale famine from taking hold. And you will have seen a statement we issued over the weekend in which the Secretary General strongly condemned Friday's attack at Lido Beach in Mogadishu, which resulted in multiple casualties. He expressed his condolences to the families of the bereaved and wished a speedy recovery to the injured. The Secretary General said that he is saddened that the people of Somalia continue to be victims of such heinous acts of terrorism. He reiterated that the UN stands firmly with the government and people of Somalia against terrorism and violent extremism. Turning to Haiti, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs remains concerned about the protection of civilians in the capital, Port-au-Prince, and in neighboring towns, as well as in the Artibonite department in the north, where violence continues to displace families. Despite the volatile context, the UN and partners in Haiti continue to support people in need. Since the beginning of March, partners distributed 29.5 million liters of drinking water to nearly 97,000 displaced people across the country, including in Port-au-Prince and Lyon. Partners have also distributed 17,000 hygiene kits to nearly 70,000 displaced people living in these areas. Since March, the World Food Programme has distributed more than 1.6 million hot meals to 132,000 displaced people across Port-au-Prince. Over the last 2 weeks, health partners reached more than 1,300 children with psychosocial and mental health support activities across displaced sites in Port-au-Prince and provided water and sanitation support. The Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, Alice Wairimu Nderitu, underlined the imperative for ensuring full accountability for international crimes committed during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda and the 1995 Srebrenica genocide. In a statement issued by her office today, she referred specifically to the more than 1,000 fugitive genocidaires from Rwanda and thousands of suspected war criminals from the former Yugoslavia who are still at large, despite existing indictments and international arrest warrants. She called on states hosting these fugitives to take active and immediate steps to ensure that they can be brought to justice by prosecuting them before their own jurisdictions or by extraditing them to jurisdictions in which they can be prosecuted. And some good news, the UN Refugee Agency flagged that yesterday, the refugee athlete Cindy Ngamba, competing in the women's 75 kg category, secured the first ever medal for the refugee Olympic team in Paris. She triumphed in her quarterfinal bout and guaranteed herself at least a bronze, with the next bout on Thursday for a potential place in the gold medal match. But whatever the outcome and whatever the eventual color of her medal, UNHCR said that her historic achievement has already sent a powerful message of hope to some 120 million forcibly displaced people worldwide. Ms. Ngamba is one of 37 athletes competing in Paris as part of the refugee team, which was created by the International Olympic Committee to give displaced sports people the chance to compete at the highest level. Wait, I'm about to sneeze first, and then, no, it's not going to happen. All right, Benno.
Thank you so much, Farhan. So on the OIOS investigation, first a technical question. In my recollection, the Secretary General terminated the contract of 7 UNRWA workers already when it happened in January. Is that incorrect?
Well, yes, he had taken that immediate action, and then there was an additional 12 cases that were brought to his attention for 19 in all. Now we have found, out of those 19, that in 10 cases there's either no information or insufficient information to support the allegations of their involvement in the October 7th attacks. The 9 for whom there is sufficient information will be terminated, and that of course includes some who had been terminated earlier as in the immediate aftermath of the reporting.
The 7 from January are included in the 9. That's what you want to tell me.
I think mostly included in the 9. It's quite possible that even of the initial group of 7, I think some of them may have had insufficient information against them.
Okay, and then my actual question is about when you say evidence obtained indicates that they were involved in the armed attacks. I think we all like to know to what degree. What kind of evidence is it, and what do you know?
Well, I don't have specific information about the specific allegations. What I can tell you, and we'll be sharing some of this with you after the briefing as well, is that the OIOS investigation involved the following: visits to Israel for discussions with Israeli officials and to receive and review information held by Israeli authorities, visits to Amman to obtain and review information held by UNRWA relevant to the investigation, including on UNRWA staff and on UNRWA operations, review of information and communications technology data, including email records and information on UNRWA vehicles, review of information received from various other sources, including that released through the media and other public sources, and communications with several member states to obtain any additional information relevant to the investigation. However, one thing I'd like to point out is that since information used by Israeli officials to support the allegations have remained in Israeli custody, OIOS was not able to independently authenticate most of the information provided to it.
Sorry, last follow-up. With all due respect, I think this is not really sufficient given all the million of funding for UNRWA when we had a half-year-long investigation, and in the end it says, yeah, they were involved in the attacks, but we don't tell you how.
We are sharing information with donors about this, and there's been a report that some of the donors are getting to review here at headquarters. That is a confidential report, so we're not able to share that with you. But the note I just read will be shared, as well as the information I just provided, and a little bit more in the interest of transparency. Gabriel.
Thank you, Farhan. Following up on that, you said the 9 may have been involved in the attacks of October 7th. Is that correct, or did I mishear you?
You heard me correct. That is exactly what I've said.
So what do we make of the fact that you say may? That means that you do not have conclusive evidence they were, but there's enough indicating they might have been? I mean, it's a word that needs to be clarified, if you don't mind.
Well, it is exactly what I would say. That again, we, that is to say, OIOS was not able to independently authenticate most of the information provided to it that was in the hands of the Israeli authorities. That was, that is information that remains in the custody of Israel. Beyond that, regarding those 9 cases, The evidence provided in support of allegations that the UNRWA staff member was involved in the armed attacks of the 7th of October 2023 could, if authenticated and corroborated, provide a factual basis to conclude that the UNRWA staff member may have engaged in conduct sanctionable under the applicable UNRWA regulations and rules. And those cases, those 9 cases, have been referred for decision.
Okay. And are those 9 people still alive?
I believe one of the 19 people is dead. The remainder are alive.
All right. I'll move on from that for a second. On Bangladesh, sorry, let me go back to the OIOs one more time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What does the Secretary General feel about these findings? What is his view of it? What's his personal feelings about what the OIOS
He
found?
believes it's important that we go through this very carefully, given the fact that any involvement in these attacks would constitute a major betrayal of trust. Obviously, there were actions that were taken for the benefit of the agency that were very swift and very decisive in terms of dealing with the individuals who had been named at first. And now it's good to have all of the information available. I do think it's important to bear in mind the huge number of UNRWA staff members who have been taking enormous risks for months, keeping tens, even hundreds of thousands of people alive, whether in shelters or whether by helping with the provision of food and services. And we want to make sure that the reputation of our UNRWA staff, our dedicated staff, including about 200 people who have lost their lives since the 7th of October, is fully recognized, and that UNRWA gets the support that it needs. Maggie?
Just continuing on OIOS. First of all, any chance OIOS could do a briefing for us? Because, I mean, this is really opaque, and you kind of mumbled at one point confidential. Is this report confidential, or is it going to be published? Or
it is
where
confidential.
Does it go?
It will not be published.
Why won't it be published?
All such reports are confidential.
Is it because it's a personnel matter? Why is it confidential?
For a variety of reasons, including, by the way, legal reasons having to do with how information is obtained and so forth. So OIOS investigation reports are strictly confidential. The report has been provided directly to the Secretary General and will not be made public. However, the General Assembly has previously decided that OIOS reports are, upon request, made available to any member state. In those cases, the Undersecretary General for Internal Oversight Services retains the discretion to redact or withhold access to an OIOS report for reasons of confidentiality, or where access might risk violating the due process rights of those involved in OIOS investigations.
All right, wait, I'm not done.
Okay.
Okay, again, could we have OIOS do some sort of briefing?
I will make the request and see
Okay.
where that goes.
And wait, so the 19 that were investigated, were these 19 all on the list of employees of UNRWA that was originally sent to the Israelis because they were vetting people? And as you remember when we heard about this in the beginning.
I believe all employees are ones that all names go over to Israel for vetting. So all UNRWA staff members that would apply to.
Okay.
Frank.
Yeah, in your remarks about this, you said these people may have been involved. Is that your words, or is that the investigators' words?
That is my words as summarizing
Can
the
you just fire
investigators'
somebody
words.
out of may have?
But it is the words I've been given to tell you, which have been very precisely written for me.
Right. But can you give us what's behind the may have? I mean, any kind of evidence, any kind of sort of
The
indicators?
basic point is, if, as I said to Gabriel, if these allegations are verified and corroborated, then that could constitute sanctionable violations of UNRWA's rules and regulations. Now, the question is one of verification. I said earlier, I think before you came into the room, that since information used by Israeli officials to support the allegations have remained in Israeli custody, OIOS was not able to independently authenticate most of the information provided to it.
Can we assume, though, that the people that were terminated, they verified the information and then they were terminated? process-wise?
The appropriate processes have been followed, and their termination followed as you can see, an extensive OIOS examination into this. Deshi.
Yes, Farhan. Couple of follow-ups also on the OIOS investigation. Just now you mentioned the sources of the evidence: the visit to Amman, to Israel, email, the car, and other information. But to what level can the OIOS determine that this person might involved or 100% certainly involved in the attack? I mean, where is the what is the percentage? Like how you put the level of those information to determine like who is in this involvement?
There would need to be further process of authentication and corroboration. We are evaluating what the next steps will be in that regard.
So, which means so far you have people may be involved, but there might. I just don't understand this may, because I feel like you don't have 100% confirmation.
We have sufficient information in order to take the actions that we're taking, which is to say the termination of these 9 individuals. Beyond that, we'll need to evaluate what further steps are needed in order to fully corroborate and evaluate.
So there's a
situation.
further action on this report, on this investigation, because you said it's been already concluded.
The OIOS investigation has been concluded. There may be further action taken, and we'll need to see how that is done.
Right. Another thing is, in your statement, you said the 10 cases, the inefficient evidence and the no evidence cases, appropriate measures will be taken in due course. What are those appropriate actions?
We're evaluating. We're evaluating what to do with those staff members now that there's no sufficient evidence linking them.
So
to
their
October
employment
7th.
is now still on hold. I mean, you are not going to.
We'll have to review this. We'll have to review each individual case to see how that is to be handled.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Last Friday or Thursday, I think, Mr. Domenico announced a program called Back to Learning in Gaza. I'm wondering, the purpose is to give children safe spaces to play, to learn, to grow, to reunite with old friends and make new ones. Given the fact that we heard multiple times nowhere is safe in Gaza, will this place of those children go back to learn be 100% safe?
There's not a single place in Gaza that is 100% safe. We've wanted to ensure the safety of our facilities, but as you can see, our facilities have been attacked. So we can't guarantee that, but we're doing our very best to ensure that areas like this will be safe and that children will be kept free from harm. Obviously, we need the full cooperation with the parties for that. Yes, please.
Thank you, Farhan. On Bangladesh, are there concerns of how the situation in the country will impact regional security? Have there been conversations between the UN and authorities in Bangladesh in the region? Thank you.
I'm hoping that this will be what I need to answer your question. No, it is not. Sorry, I've been waiting for a Bangladesh statement, but it's not quite ready yet. What I can tell you about the situation in Bangladesh is that for us the important things are that for the parties to remain calm, and we want to emphasize the importance of a peaceful, orderly, and democratic transition. We stand in full solidarity with the people of Bangladesh at this time, and we call for full respect of their democratic and human rights. And ultimately, regarding what's happened so far, there's a need for a full, independent, and impartial and transparent investigation into all acts of violence. Is this what I want? Man, I didn't really expect it that time.
But have there been further
Yeah. What?
conversations? Have there been any conversations between the UN and authorities there in the region?
We are in touch with authorities in the region, and our country team is in touch with authorities in Bangladesh, and we'll see where we go with that. But right now, the situation is moving very swiftly. We'll have to see what happens once the dust settles. Ibtisam.
Farhan, going back to the issue of the investigation. So I just want to understand, because it's a little bit confusing. So you have information, you couldn't verify them independently, and you still taking measures against people. Is that correct?
Well, here's the point. OIOS investigations are not criminal investigations. What OIOS investigators do is they carry out administrative fact-finding inquiries related to personnel, funds, and activities of the organization. The aim of an administrative investigation is to establish facts and to allow for a conclusion as to whether internal administrative law and procedures of the organization have been violated. In this case, the UNRWA regulations and rules. The United Nations has no criminal jurisdiction over its personnel, but we can impose disciplinary sanctions in response to wrongdoing or take other administrative measures to ensure the smooth functioning of the organization. And that is what we're doing in this case.
Okay, but can you say for 100% that there was wrongdoing that happened there? Can you say for sure? Because it seems to be from your
one
statement.
thing I made clear is it may have happened, but we are not able, for reasons I've been saying repeatedly during this, to fully verify and authenticate the reasons for this.
Did you, during this investigation, talk to the people who were accused of being involved in such activities?
No, and what I can tell you is because of safety and security concerns, OIOS did not meet with subject UNRWA staff and possible corroborating witnesses to conduct interviews and take statements. In some cases, however, OIOS was able to request and secure video-recorded statements from the subjects who responded to a series of set questions addressing the allegations of their own involvement in the armed attacks of the 7th of October 2023. In another case, the subject, on his own volition, provided a video recording offering a general denial of the allegations raised against him.
Okay, just one last one. So you said that the accusation were made by the Israelis. The Israelis gave you information without giving you the evidence. They have the evidence, the so-called evidence. So my question is...
There's some evidence that is in their custody, yes.
Yeah, so it's in the custody of the Israelis, not your custody. Is that correct? And why didn't you give this? Why didn't they give you this so-called evidence?
That's a question to ask them, not us.
No, but isn't a question that you should ask?
We, of course, have asked all relevant authorities to provide any necessary evidence. There's some that we were not able to have because it's not in our custody.
But I mean, you can understand why you are a little bit baffled by your statement, because it seems to be that you are coming to a conclusion without having enough evidence and without providing us enough evidence to understand what you are saying.
I mean, we act on the best information that we have. The reason we've come to these conclusions is the result of some fairly painstaking work since January. Obviously, this is, like I said, this is not a criminal investigation. For a criminal investigation, you would need different standards and you would need a different approach. If there is to be any follow-up as a criminal investigation, other steps will need to be considered, but because this is not the body for that.
But why then would you fire the people if it's not a criminal investigation? If you don't have enough evidence, why are you firing them or taking any steps against them? That's what is not clear for us.
Like I said, for 9 people, the evidence was sufficient to conclude that they may have been involved in the 7th of October attacks. And the UN has the ability, in its authority, to impose disciplinary sanctions in response to wrongdoing or take other administrative measures to ensure the smooth functioning of the organization. And as I said in what I read earlier, that the employment of the 9 individuals will be terminated in the interests of the UN Relief and Works Agency. Yes, Benno.
Yeah. To understand, sorry to go back to the word may, but like to understand it better, does that mean like you see that these 9 people likely or highly likely were part of the attacks?
I think that's a good way of describing it, yes.
Okay, I have more questions, sorry. Did I understand correctly that you didn't conduct interviews out of safety concerns with the accused? Then I would like to know what kind of safety concerns is this?
You're well aware what the safety concerns are of going to Gaza at this time.
I mean,
But,
like you can still interview people via like Zoom. Or
Well, we
telephone.
were able to get video recorded statements, as I just mentioned. By the way, a lot of the information that I'm saying to you right now, we're going to give it to you all en masse following the briefing. Yes, Deshi.
I just have one question. I won't ask you more. Just one question, but you have to answer me yes or no. That is, have you personally read this investigation report?
The full report? No. Yes.
All right, Farhan, 19 people were investigated, 7 were already fired. When did the additional 12 come to the Secretary General's attention?
I believe we had mentioned this, but there was subsequent information that we received in March, and we had said
okay.
at the time.
And then are any of the accused, any of these 19 or presumably 18 since we knew from January, I think that one of them was dead, are any of them in Israeli custody? Where are they? I mean, were they arrested?
I don't have a case by a case amount of information. I believe that they're not. I believe that they're not people who are currently in custody. Yes.
Thanks, Farhan. Involvement, you said involvement in October 7th. That can mean different things to different people. Can you give us any clarity on what you mean by that?
For us, any participation in the attacks is a tremendous betrayal of the sort of work that we are supposed to be doing on behalf of the Palestinian people.
And okay, one on Bangladesh, a follow-up on Bangladesh. The military is urging people to trust it to restore calm. Does the Secretary General have confidence in the military as being the caretaker in the interim period of this governmental alleged transition?
I think for us, the important thing is we want to make sure that all of the authorities, the political authorities, the military authorities, and anyone else who has a say in the current transition, work together so that there will be a peaceful and democratic transition.
And does Secretary General have anything to say to the Prime Minister who's fled the country and her whereabouts is unknown?
I believe we will have a full message from the Secretary General conveying his views that we will get to you shortly, but not shortly enough for it to be one of the pieces of paper that gets handed to me over the course of the briefing. Yes, Benno.
Sorry. I guess a very easy question. All the 9 UNRWA workers, are they men?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, yes, they are. Yeah. Have a,
Oh, the 9 that were terminated.
yeah. All right. Have a good afternoon,
Are you
everyone.
giving me? I have a question.
You know, you need to do a much better job of signaling
I put
to
my
my
hand,
colleagues.
I put my name. You gave 3 rounds to some of the journalists. You did not see me.
I've not seen your name.
What else I can do other than my name and my hand? What? Tell me.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Someone says that
Please.
Abdul Hamid has a question. Great. All right.
I have a few questions.
All right.
Okay, on the OIS, the minute that the news about these allegations started, 12 staff were immediately fired. So among those 12 staff, I'm sure, you know, some of them are innocent or found innocent. Would UNRWA reinstall them, apologize to them, and give them their salaries retroactively or not?
We are evaluating what the steps are to be taken. As I just said, in those cases, appropriate measures will be taken in due course in conformity with UNRWA regulations and rules.
Yeah. I have other questions, Farhan. Attacking the schools in Gaza, at least 40 Palestinians were killed. You mentioned the attacks, but you didn't mention the number of people killed. And as Domenico said, the most dangerous thing of this war is to be immune to horror. That means it becomes killing 40 Palestinian is nothing. It's okay. We talk about attacking the schools, but we don't talk about the victims. 9 people were killed in Tulkarem on the weekend. 9 Palestinians were killed. None of them mentioned in the statement or in any statement of any UN official. Are you getting immune to horror?
We are not getting immune to horror, which is why I spend a considerable amount of time in each briefing talking about the situation in Gaza. Indeed, the majority of the words I use in any of the briefings since October have been about the situation in Gaza. This, despite the fact that, as you know, there are many atrocious things happening around the world in Sudan, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Haiti, and elsewhere. So we are very concerned about this, and we try to give as much information as we can. The briefing is only so long, so we cannot provide an exhaustive amount of information about all of the incidents that have happened. But we are keeping track of all of them, and we do demand accountability for all of them.
The Israeli finance minister Smotrich said, killing 2 million Palestinians out of famine is legal and just. Do you have any comment on such a statement?
It's completely wrong. There's no reason to justify the killing of any civilian anywhere. All right. Have a great afternoon, everyone.